I met a gypsy.
So, and then the next thing that I get from people is, or the thing that I get the pushback from people. So in motocross, there's this thing called arm pump. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before. Basically, you just get like crazy lactic acid buildup in your forearms.
Get it in jiu-jitsu sometimes.
Yeah. So I don't get arm pump riding much anymore. Like in extreme cases, like in a really rough track, really long moto, like my technique's not good, then I'll still get it. But just as far as it goes, like I can go and do like 30 minutes riding constantly without my arms getting that feeling. And so people will always say, and this has been an old adage through motocross, this is like a motocross wives' tale, is creatine will give you arm pump.
Maybe I would probably say maybe not though, because what says to me is like what if it's anything like what you get in jiu-jitsu when you do that, that's like a crazy feeling. A lot of the time, that's like an extreme cramp. It's like an extreme cramp almost, and the reason that'll come on is 3 reasons: the muscle's dehydrated, which the creatine would
help for.
Yeah, technically help. There may be an electrolyte balance, which probably isn't the case. Like a lot of people think electrolyte and cramps, and that research isn't as strong as what people actually think. Or 3, the muscle's not as conditioned. And you'll see the most people that get like, there's a Portuguese word for it. It's like concrete arm or something, for it is. But it happens mostly to white belts. Yeah. You don't see a lot of like blue, purple, brown belts getting it because their muscles get more conditioned to it. Yeah. And so then you look at it and go, okay, well, what's the conditions you're riding? Is it really hot where your muscles will dehydrate? Are you going really hard? Like, are you just pushing your body to the max? Yeah. Would creatine be detrimental to that? I would doubt it.
What would the science of that potentially be? Like, if you had to play the side where you said creatine does cause arm pump or would be a factor in it, what would be the basis for that? Like, is there anything that you could think of?
Maybe it leads to fatigue faster. Maybe because you've got more water in there, it's not even the water. You don't even hold that much water from the creatine, to be honest. Maybe it leads to more fatigue. I couldn't really rationalize it out, to be honest. I don't. Yeah.
Like I don't. For me now, I don't have that issue like I used to have. But I remember. So when I went to Thailand and I did the Lachlan Giles camp in Thailand, and like I've been riding bikes my entire life, like 7 years I've been on a motocross bike, and I had arm pump forever. Like every time I rode, I'd get arm pump, and then I went to this camp in Thailand and I did this 10-day thing with Lockie. It was hot as fuck. Like I was so dehydrated. Like that's when I really learned what dehydration actually was, because I got like pretty much a full body cramp. Like I could barely walk back to my villa. I was having like coconut water flat out and like these sachets trying to like get this electrolytes back in. But I was having to go. We were doing so much jiu-jitsu and I was only a white belt. And my fucking arms, dude, like I was going home and putting my arms in ice, like in the tub, like for having an ice bath for my forearms because they were that bad. And there's occasionally, I actually get it in no-gi more than gi too, because I guess like in no-gi, sometimes you've got to work harder with grips and it's more like you've really only got like a cupping motion and it's like a slippery surface kind of deal. So I get it in no-gi occasionally, but I'm with you. Like, I just feel like there's a level, and this is sort of what I try and say to motocross racers now as a result. And this isn't coming from like someone that's only just started jiu-jitsu, and this is like, you know, like a quick anecdotal thing. Like this is years. Like I've put in thousands of hours on the mat at this point. And I just think that the riders that get arm pump are just not conditioned in their forearms. And it's like, which is kind of, the crazy thing though with it is that you'll get professional athletes. Like I know like Ford Dale is like one of the fastest riders to ever come out of Australia. And he's like rides all day, every day. Like it's his job, you know what I mean? And he'll still get arm pump. So I think for the average person, it's just a complete lack of conditioning. And I even noticed like I've been doing some shoulder hangs for my shoulders with Olympic rings. And like I get arm pump doing that. So because that's like quite an extreme version of like a forearm contraction, you know, like trying to hold your whole body weight. But yeah, I think that there's, for the average guy, it's a real lack of conditioning. That's what's giving you arm pump. But for the the guys at the elite end, I feel like there's got to be some kind of maybe like breathing, they stop breathing properly through the races, that like the level of stress that they're encountering because it's fight or flight response, maybe like there's a flood of cortisol that's going through the system, maybe like dehydration's not exactly on point. So it's a definitely a tricky one when it comes to like the elite level guys, because there's probably a bunch of different factors that's playing into it, because you probably couldn't blame it on conditioning.
Yeah. It depends, right? Like, that's the whole thing. And this is the kind of divergent, but that's why we made that supplement company. Is like, I always say, when we talk to people, is like, supplements don't necessarily work unless you work with them.
Yeah.
It's a big reason, right? Is like the stuff we wanted to make, like our first one we have is just an electrolyte mix for things exactly like that. Like what you spoke about when you're in Thailand, you're super hot and you're dehydrated. One of the potential reasons that people get in arm pump or jiu-jitsu concrete arm or whatever could be the dehydration. So it's like, to factor that out here, take this, we made this. But you know what? It could also just be that you're not conditioned. Like the muscles in your forearm are so intricate. Like,
it's so specific.
So, and like maybe you're turning on these muscles more than and you're not just aware of it.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're just not cognitively aware of that, and then you're actually like just fatiguing them. Or maybe you just don't have enough glycogen in there. You didn't load up properly.
Yeah.
And so you're like fatiguing them. But hey, you know what? Let's knock as many of these ducks out. We're going to make sure you're carbo loaded going into that race so it doesn't happen. We're going to make sure that you're very well hydrated here. Take these, make sure you have this much every time. You know what? We're going to use some cooling systems to make sure you're not overheating as well, like under your what do you call it, like your motocross gear or whatever. So like, you just need to knock as many as you can, because we don't know. Like, it could be many different things. Just knock them all out.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.